So then, did you go straight from 81 to 141 for middle school?
Yes, I did.
And then where did you go for high school?
Well, I started out, I went to 141 for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Then I went to Yeshiva University High School, the Marcia Stern Talmudic Academy for boys. And I went there for about a year and a half. And then I came back to Riverdale and went to Kennedy High School. And I graduated from Kennedy.
What was the reason that you switched schools?
MTA, as it's called, Yeshiva University High School, was a very, very miserable place. Miserable is quite an understatement. Well, let's put it this way. There was one incident. There was a kid by the name of Andy Ullman. And his friends thought that it would be funny to tell Rabbi Grossman, who was teaching a course on the prophets, that Andy Ullman said something about him behind his back. So Rabbi Grossman stood in the doorway of the classroom, and he confronted Andy Ullman when he came, unbeknownst to Andy Ullman. He had no idea that his friends had cooked this up. And he basically gave him a head-body combination and knocked him to the floor.
Was corporal punishment tolerated or allowed in that school?
Yes.
And the parents didn't complain about that?
No, actually, a lot of the parents, a lot of the fathers went there themselves as high school students. And you should have seen parent-teacher conference day. They would be pacing and sweating in the hallways, waiting to talk to the same teachers that they had when they were there. There was this one rabbi who I had for English, sophomore English, when I was there, a rabbi by the name of Leibel Dulitz. And this guy was just demented. He was just plain sick. Every day he would talk about putting handcuffs on us so that our wrists would bleed, and using thumb screws on us, and doing all sorts of torture things to us.
He talked about it, but he wasn't doing it, was he?
No, he wasn't doing it.
But he fantasized.
Yeah, out loud.
Oh. Did you tell your parents?
Yeah. Oh, actually, at the parent-teacher conference, my father had his fist curled up behind his back when he was speaking with Rabbi Dulitz, because my father went into the parent-teacher went into the room. Dulitz was sitting at his desk. My father was sitting at the chair in front of his desk. I was sitting behind my father. And nobody was saying anything. It was just dead silence. So then Dulitz took his key ring and he knocked on the table and he goes, "Hello, hello." And my father curled up his fist. He was like, "I don't know what your son has told you, but there's his version, there's my version, and there's the truth." Yeah, my father wanted to knock this guy out.
Well, who's the one that really wanted to go there? Was it you or your family?
Oh, I wanted to go there because I was turned on to Orthodox Judaism actually by the math teacher that I had at 141 when I was in the 9th grade. He was I guess you can call him an evangelical Jew. He was affiliated with the Lubavitchers. His name was Tzvi Rosen. And at lunchtime, a few days a week, we would study the Talmud, and all that. So he got me into that. He got me an application to MTA, and that's where I ended up going. Yeah.
And how did your parents feel about your wanting to go there? Were they in favor, or they
were in favor.
That was fine with them?
Yeah, my father especially liked the idea of me going to yeshiva. But this yeshiva was just basically an asylum. I mean, and here's the thing: the inmates weren't the students; they were the teachers and the administration. And in fact, later on, I had a cousin, actually a cousin here in Riverdale, as I found out. She was from the Spett family. Her last name was Rosenblatt. She was a radiologist. She is actually a radiologist. Her husband was Larry Hocker, who was the chairman of the community board. And my father and I dropped by at their house on Thanksgiving once, and I actually met my grandfather's cousin Albert, who was her uncle. And there was also a guy there by the name of Larry Lunan. Now, Larry Lunan taught at MTA after my time, but he said, you do know that they write your grades in pencil on your permanent records, that they can change them if you ever say anything negative about them after you leave.
Now, whose idea was it to get out of there? Yours or your father's?
Well, basically, it was that's an interesting story. Because when I was a junior, I had a math teacher by the name of David Letterman, except it was Ledderman, not Letterman. But needless to say, when they introduced him on the first day of school, the crowd cheered, because his name was David Letterman. Anyway, what happened was, he arranged his test schedule so that if you failed one test, you failed the entire semester.
Now, where was this?
This was at MTA.
Oh, okay.
And so, what was it? I failed the first test that he gave, and there was this incident where somebody sneezed in class, and I said, "Bless you," and then there was some laughing going on. So he walked over to my desk and he said, "Why are you even still here? You have no chance of passing my class. Get out." So I got out of his class, and there was an incident where my parents, I actually got word through a friend of mine, "Your parents are here." This was a couple of days later. "Your parents are here. They're meeting with, because we had a new principal by the name of Marvin Spiegelman." So from this, we were at lunch, and from what I gathered, this Marvin Spiegelman told my parents that he was going to call up to the classroom to have me, sent down so that we could all talk. There were no phones in the classrooms. The building was 100 years old. He pretended to dial a number so that my parents would think that he was calling up to the classroom. Anyway, it was after that I realized that they could pin anything on me that they wanted. So I decided to take 2 weeks off, and 2 weeks off turned into I'm not going back. So the last communication that I ever had was with the associate principal, and he said his last words to me were, "Well, return your textbooks." Still have them.
So then you started going to Kennedy, and how did you like it there?
Kennedy was interesting because when I came into Kennedy, I wasn't tracked into any particular. I came in as a free agent. You see, if you came in as a freshman or a sophomore, you were tracked into a different program. And I wasn't, so I got to take whatever courses, I wanted to take that fulfilled the curriculum. So I always wanted to learn French. I took French. For gym, I took tennis, which turned into tennis and volleyball. I took beginning piano, which was nice. My second semester there, I was playing conga in the jazz band. I had to take English literature and senior English my second semester there, and that was great. I had great teachers there. I had one peculiar teacher by the name of Anita Ram, who I had for American history, and this was early in the morning. This was an 8:10 in the morning class up on the 8th floor of the building, and they didn't let you take the elevators. So that was quite an interesting thing. I used to sit in the back of the room. And actually, in that class, what was it, on my test, she used to give me 98s. I'm like, but I got the other question right. She said, well, nobody's perfect.
So now, who were your friends during these high school years? Because you moved from one school to another. Did you have friends that you left behind at the yeshiva, or did you just...
Oh, I had friends I left behind at the yeshiva.
Did you continue to see them after you left?
No, I did not continue to see them after they left. However, one or two of them I reconnected with on Facebook recently.
Were there other students who had a survivor in their family that you knew of?
At MTA?
Yeah, or at Kennedy.
At the yeshiva?
At the yeshiva?
Well, at the yeshiva, yeah, sure.
So was that something that people discussed openly?
Not really. It was just a matter of fact. Yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of fact.
Did you ever find that you felt you had more in common with other children of survivors?
Well, I found that MTA was the first place where I felt like I belonged, with the other students. They were friendly, and it was basically us versus the administration. So, yeah, that was the first place that I felt comfortable as as a peer. It was not like that when I went to PS 81 or when I went to 141. But then when I transferred to Kennedy, I was pretty much doing my own thing, and there were some people there that I knew from 141, and actually a good friend of mine who I met when I was in the 6th grade, and we reconnected and all that, and we would do things, and sometimes go downtown. We went to like the United Nations and watched the Security Council and all that stuff. So yeah.
You had mentioned that your father spoke at 141. Did he ever speak at Kennedy or even at the yeshiva about his war experiences?
No, not at Kennedy and not at the yeshiva. But at 140, but he was still speaking at 141.
He was still going there.
He was still going there because one of the social studies teachers heard his lecture and wanted him to speak to his classes year after year. So it became an annual thing,
When you were in high school, did you have an idea, like, I really am interested in this, I'm thinking I want to be that when I grow up? I mean, did you have any career goals in mind in high school?
Well, the funny thing is I was always interested in history. Now, at Kennedy High School, one of the things that you had to do, especially if you were on your own, was you had to make it into the library by the second bell for lunch. If you didn't do that, the security guards would pick you up in the hallway and they would take you to the lunchroom upstairs. That happened to me once. It was kind of like a prison riot in there. So I never wanted that to happen again. So I always made sure to get into the library for lunch, and I would read history books and all that. I didn't know. I mean, I basically had the idea since I was about 11 that I wanted to be a lawyer. But then came this thing called music. And also art history. I actually spent my last semester at Kennedy High School in something called the Executive Internship Program, where I got to work at the Metropolitan Museum of Art full-time. And I got to receive my high school credits for it. Of course, I was on my own for the English regions and for the history regions. But yeah, I was working in the Thomas J. Watson Library, which is the main private research library at the Metropolitan Museum, and they actually offered me a job afterwards, which I took. But then they didn't like the fact that college was distracting me later on that year, so I was given the option of either going to college or working there, but I couldn't do both.